Welcome back to Mr. Zombie, the place where real stories don't need monsters to be terrifying. Tonight we're diving into true horror stories from the night shift, where time slows down, the air feels thicker, and the lights flicker for reasons no one can explain. If you've ever worked late, the quietest moments can be the scariest. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and let's begin.
The hospital basement. I work nights at St. Andrew's Medical Center. People say hospitals sleep after visiting hours, but that's a lie. The walls breathe. The machines whisper. And the silence, it's the kind that listens back. My job's simple. Clean the empty wings, mop the floors, keep the corridors shining for the morning shift. I liked the peace of it, until about a month ago when I started hearing the wheels. It was close to 2 a.m. I was in the east corridor, past the surgery department. A faint squeak echoed from downstairs. Not footsteps, wheels. Like a stretcher or a laundry cart, one that needed oiling. We don't use that basement anymore. It's been closed off since the flood in 2012. I checked the schedule, no one was assigned there. But the sound didn't stop. Back and forth, steady like someone pacing with the cart. At first I thought maybe one of the night nurses forgot supplies. So I went down. The elevator to the basement hadn't worked in years, so I took the service stairs, the ones that smell like bleach and rust. Halfway down, the light flickered. Once, twice, then stayed dim. The air was cold, wet, like breathing through a sponge. When I reached the bottom, I saw the corridor. Narrow, damp, lined with old hospital beds covered in plastic. And right in the middle of it, a cart. Laundry style with a white sheet thrown over the top. It wasn't moving now. Just standing there. I called out. No answer. I pushed it slightly, light like it was empty. But the floor under it was streaked dark like old water stains, or something else. A trail led toward the old morgue doors. I followed it a few steps before the smell hit me. Not rot, not mold. That's when the lights went out. Completely. I froze. The silence was too thick. It pressed against my ears. Then, from behind me, I heard the wheels again. Slow. Closer. The same sound I'd followed down here. I turned with my phone flashlight shaking in my hand. The cart was gone. Just a trail of damp marks on the tile leading toward the morgue. I should have run, but instead I whispered, "Who's down here?" No reply, just the sound of something sliding across metal. The morgue door creaked open an inch. A cold breeze crawled out, smelled like disinfectant and old linen. And then I saw it. A hand. Gray, wet, just visible under the morgue light. It gripped the edge of the door, and the nails scraped as it pulled the door wider. I dropped my mop and ran. All the way up the stairs, not looking back once. When I reached the main hall, the light above the elevator blinked twice and steadied. And faintly, from below, I heard the wheels again, rolling, stopping, rolling. The next morning, my supervisor asked why my cart was blocking the stairwell. I told her I'd left it in the janitor's room. She frowned. No, she said. It was parked by the basement door. The next night, I almost called in sick. But rent doesn't wait for ghosts, and hospitals don't care about fears. So I showed up. Same uniforms, same bleach bucket, same dark hallways that buzzed like a dying TV. The supervisor told me to avoid the basement. Apparently, the maintenance crew was supposed to seal it off again. But around midnight, curiosity started scratching at me. That same steady itch that makes you look under the bed even when you know you shouldn't. So I went back. The stairwell light was flickering worse than before. Every time it blinked, the shadows changed shape. Longer, thinner, stretching like they wanted to follow me down. At the bottom, I noticed something strange. The cart wasn't there anymore, but the tracks it had left had dried to a rust-colored smear. I pulled the chain for the overhead light. It stuttered on, buzzing, weak like it didn't want to show me what it saw. The morgue door was closed again. But now there were handprints, 5 long smudges sliding down the metal from the top. Like someone had tried to push it shut from the inside. I told myself it was moisture. Condensation. That's what the mind does. It builds walls when the dark starts talking back. Still, I couldn't leave it. I grabbed the handle. Cold, wet, sticky. It gave way with a hiss. Inside, the air hit me like a wall, stale, cold, sweet in the wrong way. There were metal drawers along the wall. Some labeled, some scraped clean. And in the middle, that same cart. Its wheels pointed toward the exit like someone had just parked it. Only now, under the thin hospital sheet, something was moving. Not much. Just the faintest rise and fall. I backed up, heart pounding so loud it filled the silence. And then the lights overhead flickered, one by one, until only the one above the cart was left. A voice broke the quiet. A whisper raw like someone's throat hadn't been used in years. "You left me here." My throat closed. "Who's there?" But I already knew no one should be. The drawer next to the cart slid open by itself, metal screaming against metal. A paper tag dangled from it, swinging slow. Patient 47, deceased, 2012. The flood year. That was the same year the basement was shut down. The air thickened. The sheet on the cart shifted again, slow, careful. Like someone underneath was turning their head toward me. I took a step back, then another. The light over the cart blinked twice and went out. The sound that followed wasn't a moan or a scream. It was the sound of wheels rolling fast straight toward me. I bolted. My shoulder hit the door frame and I stumbled up the stairs. Behind me I heard the crash of metal on tile. Then the long scrape of something being dragged back into the dark. When I reached the top, the stairwell door slammed shut on its own. The fluorescent lights above buzzed back to life, too bright, too normal. And on the inside of the stairwell door, there was a fresh palm print. Gray, wet, and still dripping. I didn't go back the next night. But 2 days later, when the maintenance team came in to seal the basement, they found the cart again. Parked neatly by the elevator that hasn't worked in a decade. And on the sheet covering it, in letters traced with grime, someone had written, "Next shift." I told myself I wouldn't go back. I even considered quitting. But it's funny how bills make you brave. By the third night, I convinced myself it had all been stress. The fluorescent hum, the lack of sleep, my imagination chewing on shadows. Still, when I clocked in, I noticed something odd. The basement key was missing from the board. Only 2 people had access to it, me and the maintenance guy, Luis. When I asked him, he looked pale. "Man," he said, rubbing the back of his neck, "they sent me down there this morning. Something's not right." He wouldn't look me in the eye. He told me he'd gone to lock the basement door, but when he got there, the door was already open. The lights were off, and in the middle of the hallway the cart was parked again. But this time there were 2 sheets folded neatly on top. No stains. No dust. Like someone had just laundered them. "I didn't touch anything," Luis said, voice shaking. But the elevator light turned on. That one hasn't lit up since before I started here. He left, and I swear I heard him muttering something in Spanish, a prayer maybe. Around 1:30 a.m., the lights in my corridor started flickering. Same rhythm as before, long pause, then 2 short blinks. The same pattern I'd seen in the basement. My mop handle trembled in my hands. I told myself, don't go back there. But my feet didn't listen. The basement door stood open a crack. The air that seeped out was cold enough to make me see my breath. I turned on my flashlight and started down the stairs. At the bottom, the floor was clean. Too clean, like someone had scrubbed it spotless. And in the middle of the hallway, the cart waited again. This time there was no sheet on it. Just a folded hospital gown. I picked it up. The tag read, "Property of St. Andrews, Ward 3A. Ward 3A had been closed since the flood. Behind me something clicked. The morgue door was slowly swinging open. I didn't see anyone touch it. But I heard breathing from the other side, shallow, uneven, like lungs learning to work again. Then the intercom system crackled above me. A voice half buried in static. "Custodial, assistance, to basement level." My walkie-talkie answered it automatically, a burst of feedback, then silence. I should have left. But I stepped closer to the door. And as I reached out, the lights flickered again. 2 short blinks, then darkness. Something brushed past my leg. Cold. Heavy. Like someone dragging their hand across my uniform. I stumbled back, turned the flashlight down, and saw footprints. Wet, bare, fresh. They led away from the morgue door. Straight toward the stairs. I ran up as fast as I could. Halfway to the top, the stairwell lights shut off again. In that darkness, I heard the wheels, squeak, roll, squeak. But this time they weren't below me. They were above. I froze. Something, was rolling the cart down toward me. The flashlight flickered once. Enough to show me a figure at the top of the stairs. Tall, thin, wearing a hospital gown, skin gray like paper soaked in bleach. It was pushing the cart slowly, almost carefully. And then it spoke. "You forgot to clock out." The flashlight died. The only sound was the squeak of wheels and my own heartbeat pounding in my skull. When the morning shift came in, they found me in the janitor's closet. Sitting on the floor, uniform soaked in sweat. The mop handle broken in half beside me. They said I'd locked myself in there from the inside. I didn't remember doing it. But on the closet floor, next to my bucket, was a small folded piece of fabric. A hospital tag sewn into it read, "St. Andrews, Custodial."
The warehouse alarm.
I worked security at an old distribution warehouse on the edge of town. Graveyard shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Easy money, they said. Just keep an eye on the monitors, log the patrols, and make sure no one sneaks into steel copper wiring. For the first 2 months, it really was easy. A few raccoons setting off motion sensors, the occasional alarm glitch. But then Sector 9 started lighting up. It happened the first Friday of October, 1:37 a.m. Alarm triggered, motion detected, East Wing. I checked the cameras. Nothing but shadows and pallets wrapped in plastic. I silenced the alert and logged it as a false positive. But 5 minutes later, it triggered again. Same camera, same time gap. When I replayed the footage frame by frame, for just a second, less than half a second, I caught something. A figure. Not clear, not detailed. Just a faint outline, like heat distortion in the shape of a person, standing between 2 stacks of boxes. Then gone. The next night, it happened again. Same sector, same time. I called maintenance, had them check the sensors. They said everything was working fine. Probably a mouse, the tech joked. I didn't laugh. The warehouse was massive. 12 sectors, each the size of a small supermarket. When the lights were off, it was just a sea of concrete and echo. Every footstep came back to you twice. Once a sound, once as something heavier. At 1:35 a.m., I stared at the monitor. The feed from Sector 9 was darker than usual, like the power there was slightly lower than the rest of the building. Then the alarm beeped. Motion detected. I sighed, grabbed my flashlight, and started the patrol. The echo of my boots followed me down the concrete hall. The air smelled like metal and old oil. When I turned into Sector 9, the light over the loading bay was flickering, throwing long shadows between the stacks. The place felt smaller somehow, like the boxes were closing in. I checked the corners, the sensors, the exits. Nothing. Then I heard it, a short, sharp click. Not an animal. It was the sound of a camera shutter. I spun around. No one there. The flashlight beam caught something shiny near the floor. A small piece of glass, cracked like a lens. The monitor back in the office beeped again. Motion detected, Sector 9. But this time, the alert message read, detected, operator ID number 203, location confirmed. My ID. I hadn't scanned in anywhere near that sensor. I froze. The screen in the guard office shouldn't have known my position. Those motion sensors didn't track IDs, only movement. Yet there was plain text on the monitor. Detected, operator ID number 203, location confirmed. That was me. The system thought I was in Sector 9, but I was standing right there, flashlight still trembling in my hand. For a second, I told myself it was a glitch, some bad code or feedback loop between the scanners. But then I remembered something worse. The camera had clicked before that message appeared. Something or someone was watching me. I stepped back toward the main hall. The sensor lights blinked red one by one, following my path like a trail of digital eyes. When I reached the intersection between sectors, the intercom crackled. Sector 9, clear. It was my voice. Exactly my tone. Exactly my phrasing. The kind of phrase I used every night while logging patrols. But I hadn't said a word. The sound came again, this time layered, static underneath, like a recording played through old tape. Sector 9 clear. Sector 9 clear. It repeated until it became rhythm. Then it stopped abruptly. The lights over the main corridor flickered. All 12 motion sensors lit up at once, red and blinking, as if the whole building was moving. Every screen in the office started flashing alerts. Motion detected. Sector 1, Sector 2, Sector 3, all of them, all except Sector 9. That one stayed green, motionless. I ran back to control room, heart pounding so hard it felt like the floor was bouncing with me. On the monitors, every sector showed the same feed. Dark aisles, crates, shadows, except one. Sector 9's camera showed me, standing exactly where I'd been 2 minutes ago, flashlight raised, staring at the lens. Only I wasn't moving. The version of me on screen was frozen mid-step, like a photograph that kept breathing. Then my radio hissed. Confirmed visual. Operator 203, status check. That was dispatch. The night supervisor never called unless something major went wrong. I pressed the talk button. Yeah, I'm here. False alarm again. Might be system interference. Static. Then the same voice repeated, but distorted. Operator 203 confirmed. Except it wasn't dispatch anymore. It was my own voice again, slightly off, deeper. I yanked the power cable from the main monitor. The screens went black. Silence, except for the hum of fluorescent tubes. I waited. Then, from somewhere deep in the building, I heard the alarm restart, faint, distant, echoing. But it wasn't coming from the speakers. It was coming from the warehouse itself. A long metallic beep, 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 growing louder as if the sound was traveling down the halls. I grabbed my keys, ready to leave, when the emergency lights came on automatically. They glowed red, washing everything in the color of blood. And across the opposite wall, a shadow walked slowly past the glass window of the office. Tall, steady, flashlight beam cutting through the dark. Mine was hanging from my belt. The shadow passed the window again. Same stride, same height, like watching myself walk by, only half a second behind reality. I reached for my flashlight, my real one, and turned it on. The beam cut through the office glass and landed on the aisle beyond. Nothing, just a faint shimmer in the air like heat above asphalt. Then my radio clicked again. Operator 203 movement confirmed. I didn't answer. The voice repeated, slower this time, like the recording was stretching. Operator 203. The lights over Sector 9 flickered in sequence, drawing my eyes back to the monitors. Even though I'd unplugged them, one of the screens was on again. Old CCTV tech, green-tinted, buzzing faintly. Sector 9 feed. And in the middle of the frame, I saw me, but not Liv. The me on the screen was moving slower, like I was underwater. Each frame jerked forward. Then the playback caught up, and suddenly my double lifted its radio, turned its head toward the camera, and smiled. That's when the alarm stopped. Total silence. Not even the hum of the lights. Then the PA system crackled alive overhead. A single word came through, grainy, distorted, but clear enough. Repeat. The sound of my own breathing filled the room. Except it wasn't coming from me. It was coming from the wall speaker, perfectly in sync. Every inhale, every exhale. Then the breathing kept going when I held my breath. Something moved behind the storage shelves. I swung the flashlight around. Nothing. But when I turned back to the monitors, the me on screen was closer, half a frame now, still smiling, eyes fixed on the camera. A faint thud came from the hall, then a scrape. Footsteps? I backed toward the door. The radio hissed again, then my own voice whispered, Sector 9 clear. It repeated 3 times, each quieter than the last, until it sounded like it was being whispered directly into my ear. That was enough. I bolted, down the corridor, through the metal exit door, into the freezing night. Didn't stop until I was in my car. The next morning, I filed an incident report. Faulty sensors, false alarms, system feedback. Management nodded, wrote it off as equipment aging. They replaced the cameras in Sector 9 and reset the network. A week later, I came back to grab my final paycheck. I couldn't stay there anymore. Luis, the day guard, caught me on my way out. Hey, he said, you might want to see this. He pulled up the new monitor feed from Sector 9. The new system was digital, crystal clear. At exactly 1:37 a.m., the camera glitched for half a second, and in that frozen frame, there I was, standing under the flickering light, radio in hand, looking straight at the lens. He laughed it off. Creepy, right? Must have pulled an old frame from storage. But that night, around 1:37 again, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message was a photo, a grainy security still. Sector 9. Same pose, same light, and at the bottom, the timestamp read, live feed,
The gas station light. I work nights at a small gas station off Highway 17. Population around here? Maybe 200 on a good week. Most people don't stop unless they're desperate or lost. The station's old, built in the 70s, buzzing neon sign that barely holds on to the O in open. Inside, the hum of refrigerators fills the silence. And outside, just an ocean of black highway and a single streetlight over the pumps. Except one of them never turns off. Pump 2. No matter what we do, power outage, circuit break, even when we kill the main grid, that light over Pump 2 always stays on. I didn't think much of it at first. The boss, Rick, said the wiring was ancient, probably stuck in a loop. Just leave it, he said. That glow's the only thing keeping drunks from driving straight into the pumps. But the first time I noticed the tapping, it was around 2:15 a.m., and there were no cars for miles. I was restocking snacks when I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. Steady. Metallic. Like someone lightly knocking on glass. I walked outside. Fog. Cold enough to sting. Pump 2's light buzzed overhead, insects orbiting it like tiny satellites. But no one was there. Just the sound of the wind and that quiet electric hum. Then, when I turned back toward the door, I caught a reflection in the glass. Someone standing by Pump 2. Tall, still, facing the light. I spun around. Empty. No footprints. No car. The reflection was gone too. Next night, same time. Tap, tap, tap. This time, I went out with a flashlight. Shined it across the pumps, the lot, the ditch. Nothing. But when I aimed the beam at the base of Pump 2, I saw something scratched into the metal. A single word, etched deep. Stay. The next day, I asked Rick if he knew anything about it. He frowned. Pump 2. Yeah, that one's cursed, he said, half joking. We lost a guy there years back. Old attendant. Went out to clean the windshield for some lady, then just... He snapped his fingers. Gone. Gone. I asked. Never found him. Car was gone too. Cops said it was a runaway case. But he was 60, bad knee, no license. He shrugged. Anyway, if the light ever goes out, don't be outside. He laughed. I didn't. That night, when I came in for my shift, the station was darker than usual. Power flickering again. Everything dimmed, except that light. Pump 2 glowed like a small sun through the fog. And faintly, beneath the buzz of electricity, I heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. Only this time. It was coming from inside the store. The sound came from the front window, soft, rhythmic, deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. I turned off the radio and listened. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the cooler motors. It sounded exactly like knuckles on glass. I grabbed the flashlight from behind the counter and stepped toward the window. Outside, Pump 2 glowed steady through the fog, its light casting a perfect white circle on the asphalt. But there was nobody standing there. The glass fogged slightly from my breath. And that's when I saw it. A faint handprint, right where the tapping had been. Too high to be mine. Too recent to be old. The front door chimed as I stepped out. Cold air cut straight through my jacket. The hum of Pump 2 filled the silence like a living thing. I circled around the lot, light sweeping across the empty highway. No cars. No sound. Just that buzz. When I came back around to the front, something caught my eye. The door to Pump 2's maintenance panel was slightly open. It shouldn't have been. I leaned down, shining the flashlight inside. There was no wiring. Just darkness. Like the inside of the panel didn't have a back wall. It just kept going. I pulled away fast. My heart was pounding. When I looked up again, the light over Pump 2 flickered. Once, twice, then steadied. And for half a second, I saw a face reflected in the pump glass. Eyes open. Mouth slightly moving. Like it was whispering something. Then it vanished when I blinked. I ran back inside and locked the doors. Sat behind the counter and watched the monitors. The outside cameras flickered with static. But the one pointed at Pump 2 still worked. And it showed something moving in that glow. Not a person. more like a shadow pacing the edge of the light. Around and around, never stepping outside its circle. Then the sound came again. Tap, tap, tap. But not from the window this time. From the back door. I grabbed the radio and called Rick. "Hey, you ever get pranksters out here?" I asked, trying to sound calm. He sighed, half asleep. "Kid, nobody drives this way after midnight. Lock up and stay inside. And if the light flickers..." He paused. Then the line went dead. The store lights flickered once. Twice. Then Pump 2's light, visible through the window, started pulsing like it was breathing. And from the back of the store, I heard the knob turn. Slow. Careful. Metal squeaking against metal. I shined my flashlight on the door. It was locked. But the handle was moving. Then I heard the radio again. Static, then a voice. My voice. "Stay inside." Except I hadn't said it. The flashlight dimmed for a moment. And in that second, I saw it again through the reflection on the glass fridge door. Someone standing just outside Pump 2's circle of light. Still, head tilted up toward the buzzing lamp. Then, as the light flickered again, the figure looked toward the store. Straight at me. The thing outside didn't move. Just stared, unmoving, as the light above it buzzed harder, casting long ripples through the fog. I could make out the outline now. Tall, thin, wearing what looked like an old uniform jacket. The kind our attendants wore decades ago before we switched to polos. I blinked once. The figure was gone. The light steadied. Silence. Then the store lights cut out all at once. The hum of the coolers died. The radio hissed for a second and went quiet. Only Pump 2's glow remained, washing through the front glass like moonlight. My hands were shaking as I reached under the counter for the flashlight. It barely flickered on. I moved toward the front door, drawn to that one steady pool of light outside. Something about it felt wrong now, like the world had shrunk to that circle and everything else had fallen away. I stepped outside. The cold hit me first. Then the smell, not gas, not asphalt. Wet dust. Old metal. Like the air before a storm. The buzzing over Pump 2 deepened, dropping into a low hum that vibrated in my chest. I aimed my flashlight at the pavement. There were footprints. Bare ones. Leading from the pump to the store door. Then back again. I followed them. They ended right beneath the pump light. And there, on the ground, was a name tag. Old, cracked plastic. The letters almost worn away, but I could still read them. ED, attendant. Rick's story about the missing worker flashed through my head. Something shifted in the light. I looked up, expecting to see the figure again. But this time, it wasn't standing at the edge. It was inside the light. Right under it. Clear as day. An older man, soaked uniform clinging to him, skin pale gray under the orange lamp. He was facing away from me, both hands resting on the pump handle like he was fueling a car that wasn't there. My voice barely worked. "Sir." He didn't turn. Didn't breathe. Didn't move. Then, slowly, the light flickered once. And he was gone. The hum stopped. The air went dead quiet. Even the insects vanished. Then, click. The light went out. Complete black. I spun toward the store, flashlight shaking. Through the glass, I saw movement. Someone standing behind the counter. Same build, same uniform as me. They raised their hand slowly. And tapped the glass. Tap, tap, tap. The flashlight died. The store lights came back on. Everything normal again. Pump 2 glowed steady through the window. Light buzzing soft, almost gentle. When I finally went to close up at dawn, I noticed something new scratched into the metal base of the pump. Right under where it said, "Stay." A single word, added in smaller letters. "Inside."